The practice of coming back to the breath and body is so important. Sometimes we can get caught up in the idea that bringing these two worlds together, body and breath, requires heavy lifting. This isn't so. Instead, notice in stillness how the breath, the mind, and the body are already together, there, waiting for you. The way this is described in traditional metaphor is that if you take your favorite IKEA glass tumbler down to the river and scoop up some water, it will look cloudy, especially if it's a muddy river. But if you leave the glass there for a few minutes, you will notice how gravity pulls everything suspended in the water down to the bottom, and the nature of water is translucent and transparent. When you look at muddy water, you're seeing different elements coming together. Maybe you remark under your breath, oh, that's muddy water. Just as you might look into the mind and say, oh, that's a busy mind. But the nature of the mind is transparent. Its nature is awareness, which is not a thing. You cannot scroll towards awareness in the phone book. You can't drop off for a visit. You can't find it on the map of the mind. In sitting practice, there's often identification with what's being stirred up. And that identification obscures our natural ease, the natural unity of mind and body and heart. There's a couple of things I really like about this. And the first is the way he's suggesting that meditation is a practice which is a practice of total ease. So essentially, that this instead notice in stillness how the breath, mind, and body are already together. So, in other words, meditation is our natural state. Our natural state isn't to have a totally distracted mind. When we're at peace within ourselves, within our minds, that is our natural state. And in yoga, we have a term for that, and it's called Satchitananda. You may have heard that term. It's in some of the mantras. Knowledge, Sat Chitananda, truth, knowledge, and bliss absolute is the state of the mind. So the truth of understanding that you are at one with the divine, knowledge of your place as an integral part of every other being and everything in the universe, and Ananda, being at one with, or bliss. So that's a natural state of the mind. The purpose of meditation is to bring the mind back to that state. But he's saying it isn't actually about, he's saying no heavy lifting involved. Saying that's not a difficult thing. You're already in that state. You already have breath, you already have body, and you already have mind. And when you were born and you took your first breath, that was your first mantra, so. And when you take your last breath, the last exhale will be hum. That so hum mantra is your life. That so hum mantra is your whole existence. And so the meditation practice that we're working on at the moment is simply bringing yourself back to that awareness that you are essentially so hum. So hum means I am that. Sometimes it's translated as I am that, I am. And it means I am that. What does it mean to say I am that? It means I am consciousness, I am bliss, I am Satchitananda, I am God, I am Shiva, I am Krishna, I am Christ, I am Mary, I am Allah, whatever it may be for you. So that is what you're saying every time you breathe in and you breathe out. But being conscious of that breathing in and breathing out is meditation. And not being conscious of that breathing in and breathing out means you are still divine, but you're not conscious of it at that moment. So it didn't go anywhere. Does that make sense? It's always there. And this is what often happens to us in meditation. In sitting practice, there's often identification with what's being stirred up. And that identification obscures our natural ease, the natural unity of mind and body and heart. So we're continually identifying a meditation with thoughts, because thoughts don't go away in meditation, where anybody else tells you. There will still be thoughts. Mm-hmm. Even when you're really occupying your mind with a practice, with a technique, there will still be thoughts. But the thing is, identifying with those thoughts is taking you away from Soham, your true nature. So the practice is really just to be learned to settle in the true nature of Soham. Yes? I really like Marma Sthana. I really recommend him. He's a great teacher. He was a great teacher. It's somebody I really wanted to bring to the studio, but unfortunately he passed before I got the chance. So I'm going to give you a few pointers on technique in the Soham Japa meditation. So let's just start with the mala itself. So I know some of you are new to using the mala. So the first thing I would say to you is like the way you know that there's a term, they say you roll the mala. So rolling the mala implies that you don't just simply, I'm going to stand up actually so you can see better. You can just pull the mala towards you with your thumb like this, pulling it over the middle finger. That's okay. But what you find is, if as you pull the mala, you slightly roll the bead, it gets smoother. And it becomes, like the way you're trying to smooth out your breath. You can also smooth out the way you move the mala. So it's not jumpy. It's like it just rolls on the finger. That's something you can work with. And can you see in between each bead, there's a knot? All yogic malas have that knot. If you're using a mala which doesn't have that knot, it's not a yogic mala. You can use it for different types of meditation, but for yogic meditation, you need that knot. And that knot is called the Brahma Granthi. Brahma is the creator, and Granthi means knot. Sometimes it means a knot in your body. Yeah, you know what that feels like? When you have a knot in your body, that's called a Granthi. It's a place where your prana gets stuck. And a Granthi in this case is actually a physical knot, but it's a knot of creation. So every time you roll the bead, if you roll it in such a way that your finger goes down into the gap between the beads, which is actually the kind of proper way to roll a mala, then each time you roll a bead, you're not only rolling the mantra, rolling the consciousness, and rolling the bead, but you're also touching the knot of creation, which is the source of the mala and of the bead and of the breath. Does that make sense? So it has a kind of meaning. There's a reason why it's like that. So hand cupped here, ideally, I know it's like don't try not to let the hand drop. Okay, I'm not going to be too strict about this actually. If somebody was saying to me the other day, like, what kind of mala should I be using? Should it be a crystal mala? Should it be a sandalwood mala? Or should it be a rosewood mala? Should it be a rudraksha mala? The most important thing about a mala, in my opinion, is that you use it, not what it's made of. So there's a whole science of malas, and I could tell you what mala you should use for every individual mantra, and whether this type of crystal mala should be used for this or used for that, or this time of year or not that time of year. And also whether you're a meat eater or whether you're a dairy eater or you're a vegan, there's different malas for all these different things that all have different connotations. But that's just way too complicated for what we're doing at the moment, and it isn't necessary. If you've got a mala and it has the knots and it's got 108 beads, and you want to check that and make sure it has got 108 beads if you've got your own mala, because there's 108 major nadis coming from your heart, and that's where you're holding the mala, and that's where you're drawing the mala towards when you roll the beads. That's important, that connection. Then you can use any mala that you like for now. Okay? And the last thing I would say on that is lots of malas now, which are the most common mala. Okay, now I've opened the can of worms. So there's what they call soft malas. So there's soft malas, and then there's sort of like, they call them hard, but they're just, some malas are soft, which means you can use them for, anybody can use them for any mantra. Okay? And that's pretty much what you're using here. So soft malas are sandalwood. Sandalwood malas are usually considered to be soft because you can use them for anything, any mantra. I don't really want to go there. Okay, so that's most of the malas that I'm just lending you here. They're all dark or light sandalwood. A lot of what are being sold as sandalwood malas now are not sandalwood malas. Why? Because there's been so many sandalwood trees cut down in India that there's now a shortage of sandalwood trees, and they're becoming really endangered. And so the government have banned the felling of and the cutting of sandalwood trees and bushes to make malas, which is the main reason they get cut down. And so now the malas that you will buy now, if it's from a reputable source, will be a different type of wood, a different type of hardwood from India probably, but it will be infused with sandalwood oil.
You were telling us about the height of where you were going to.
Oh yeah. Bottom hand is navel height, top hand is heart height. Now that does make sense because it's between the two chakras of Manipura and Anahata. Okay, and so that is kind of the traditional way to hold a mala. Okay, and then the other thing is that you will see people holding malas in different ways. I won't talk too much about this. This is the other way of holding mala. You've seen this? When people have a mala in a bag and they meditate, they put that around them. So if you're going to do lots and lots of japa, like some people do 100 rounds of japa a day, like they just meditate all the time on their mala, which is what you eventually do end up doing in your life. But if you're a devotee and that's your sole practice, this will be the way you use your mala. But the way you do it is you stick your ego out like that. So you do it. So this is your ego finger. And the ego finger is not even, it can't touch that holy relic in the bag, the mala. It can't touch the mantra. It has to stay out of the mantra. Just look at it. So that's your ego, yeah? And so that's what it represents in the language of mudras. Okay. So that's one way. And then the other way is, it's not completely wrong to have it over your knee with just one hand with the mala hanging down. It can be done, and lots of you see lots of people who do that in India. But if you do, don't have it on a heart. You put a cloth down so that the mala is on a cloth. It's not just on the floor, which will sap its prana. Because when you've done your japa, you put your mala on, it protects you, and then you're containing the energy of the mantra on your body. Are you with me? Is this making sense? The whole big science of mala, that's another workshop. We'll do that another day. Okay. So I just want to give you a few tips. So when we do the practice, there's several ways of preparing yourself for meditation. And I'm going to work on two in this particular few satsangs we're going to do. The first one is Marma Sthana release, and the second one is Nadi Shodhana Pranayama. I'll explain Nadi Shodhana Pranayama and why it's important preparation for meditation next time. But today I'm going to do Marma Sthana. So Marma Sthana, it means secret place. Secret places in the body where the soul resides. The Marma Sthanas are 16 in the physical body. Big toe, heel, then they go up the legs, through the pelvis, etc. But for the sake of meditation, you're only interested in the marmas up in the top sort of range of marmas. And what it does is, I will talk you through it. They're not very well understood, and they're not often taught outside of Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is slightly different in the way it uses marmas to hatha yoga and meditation. But I find them very, very powerful for preparing the mind and the body for meditation. And it's really quick and easy. I don't understand why it's not done more. And I will explain that in a minute. But these little special places they relate to your chakras. Like, some of them are the same as your chakras. They're in the same place, and some of them are different. The way it works is, like, when you sit for your meditation, sometimes you don't have time to do lots of things. Like, if you chant like we did a little while ago before your meditation, it will really help you to drop into meditation, especially if you're chanting the mantra you're going to use for your meditation. So, in the end, when we were doing Om Namah Shivaya, we quietened down slowly, and then we went into a whisper, and then we went into silence. If you do that, and then you just start straight away with your meditation, it's a very powerful way to get into meditation. And if you're doing one mantra, you can start the japa when you start chanting, and keep rolling the mala as you go through into your meditation. It becomes one practice, audible and silent meditation, and then eventually leading to no mantra, complete absorption. That's the idea. So that's a really good way. Nadi-Shodhana alternate nostril breathing is a really good way, because it balances the Ida and the Pingala Nadi either side of the Sushumna, and puts the energy in the middle channel, so that when you do the meditation, you're already in the right place for the Soham. Marma Sthanas, I mean, there's others. Marma Sthanas are just ways of releasing the senses and drawing the mind inwards. So the first Marma Sthana you release is in the third eye. So it isn't a precise thing that I can say to you, but this is my own experience. So you bring your awareness to the Marma Sthana in the third eye, which is in the center of your head, in line with your eyebrow center. And when you do that, you get used to it. Your mind relaxes, which is very helpful for meditation. It's sort of like, and what it is, it's a sense of dropping. It's like there's energy concentrated in these Marma Sthanas, and that energy sometimes can be used for action, and sometimes it can be used for turning inwards. And you're using that energy by switching off its need for action into an internal kind of like stillness. So you bring your mind to the third eye first, and you switch it off, the energy there. You bring your mind to the upper palate, and you switch it off. And what that does when you drop the other palate, it negates the sense of vision. You'll feel your eyes recede slightly in your skull, and your eye muscles will relax. Very good for meditation. And then you release the soft palate. And when you release the soft palate, the Marma there releases the tongue, and it flows back into the hinge of the jaw, and that kind of like negates the sense of hearing and the sense of speech. Then you drop to the Marma in the throat pit, and you release the Marma there, the prana there, and you just let it free. And that's kind of releases like the kind of emotional state. I can't really describe it any differently to that. I mean, that's a kind of feeling. And then you go to the back throat, and you release what's called the Kanta Kupa. Throat pit is Kanta, soft palate is Lalata, upper palate is Talo Mula. This is called Brahmaja in this system. And so then you drop into the back throat, and that's more to do with memory and desire. When you switch that off, it kind of like releases you from that interference to some extent in your meditation. Then you drop into your heart, which is called Hridaya. And in Hridaya, you just allow a deep sense of compassion to enter for yourself when you in your meditation, because you have to be very compassionate towards yourself for meditation. There can't be any real resistance. Are you with me? So that is what is happening when you drop through the Marma Sthanas before you meditate. And if you get the hang of doing that, by the time you get to the heart, you will just be ready. And when you get the hang of it, you can do that in just half a minute. I don't take very long doing that. You can even do it quicker when you really get used to it. And once you've dropped into the heart, you can then, if you're going to do the Soham, you then go heart, which is Hridaya, and then you drop Nabi, which is navel, and then you drop Mula, which is perineum. So you've gone all the way through the Marmas to your perineum, and then you go, and that's a long, you get an exhale there in the perineum, and then as you inhale, you go, so, and what are you doing? So, you're pulling the prana up and dropping the prana down through the marmas you've released and opened in the Marma Sthana release. So the energy, in other words, the prana will flow much more freely and easily. You can go straight into the meditation. You've opened the channel. You've prepared the ground. You've removed the grantives. You all look slightly worried. Is this making any sense? Yeah. I mean, like you're preparing the pathway for the prana to move through by dropping through the Marma Sthanas. Then you go so, hum, so, hum, so, hum. And you move, you're kind of using that same channel. Yeah.
You've said many times the prana moves. What does that mean? Is it your breath? Is it something physical you feel? How do you?
Okay, it's a good question. When you first start, and also for the first part of the meditation, it's more like you feel like it's breathing. But as you get the breath quietens and you get more connected to where the prana is moving, or the breath is moving in the spine, the sensation of the breath moving in the spine, it changes from the grosser aspect, which is breath, to the more subtle aspect, which is prana. When you're eventually getting to the point where you're moving towards a deeper state of concentration, the breath is so thin, the breath is so quiet and so minimal, it hardly exists. And that is where there's a switch, where it goes from breathing to prana. So the prana is a subtle aspect of breath. Yes?
Yeah. How do you know when you're from breath to prana?
You'll feel it. I can't tell you how, you'll feel it. So that is the other thing which is really great about this meditation, is that it's embodied. It's not something you're just doing with your mind. It's something that you can feel in your body. And the way to work with the meditation is not to, like, there's a lot of meditation where you're like trying to watch something, where you're trying to visualize something, where you're trying to, but in this meditation, it's feeling. You feel what's happening. You feel the breath move in and out, you feel that, and then eventually you feel that transfers into prana, you feel the prana moving in your spine. And this is the awakening. It's Shakti, it's a divine energy, it's feminine energy, it's Kundalini. That's where you're moving eventually. Yes? There's another whole subject, but so yeah, so that thing of like, as you do it, like it isn't strong breathing. You start off just breathing normally, and gradually you thin the breath down and down and down and down and down. And eventually you won't really be breathing much in the end. but you'll still be very alert and awake. And they say that the actual sushumna, the actual channel through which the prana moves, is 1,000th of the thickness of a hair. So you can't do deep, strong. It's got the breathing has got to be so subtle that it can move through that channel. And in the beginning, you're not going to feel that. It's going to be more gross. It's going to be, but it still works really well. And then the last thing I wanted to say is, when you've done that, and I will guide you, so there'll be a certain period of time that you do that for. But when you're on your own, when do you switch from Soham breathing into resting your mind in the chakra? Nobody knows. It's like you learn, because it's your prana, it's your body, it's your karma, it's your practice. It's different every day. Like some days I will do a longer period of time in Soham to really, really get settled and still, and to feel the pranas really centered. And some days you could sit and you do it and it's really quick. You can just feel the pranas aligned, like everything. And you'll bring the breath up, and it will just go, and you'll want it to be still, that prana. It will tell you. If you're already feeling what's happening, it will go. There'll be a point where it just wants to rest in stillness. And when it rests in stillness, you have two options. One is the heart, and one is the third eye. And when you rest in that place, the mantra changes from Soham to Om, if you don't have a personal mantra, or your personal mantra. Because when the prana is still, it's not Soham anymore. Yeah? Soham is Om, but with the sound of the breath in front of the O and the M. Yes? Okay. So when you're holding your prana still in the third eye or the heart, it's just one mantra. Soham. Om, or your personal mantra. You can. This is the way I want you to practice it until you get the hang of it. But I was also taught that there are other ways. I mean, you can do the whole thing with your deity mantra. You can breathe your deity mantra up and down your spine. And also guru mantras, like people who are completely devoted to a guru, like you could, that works as well. Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya. But you've got to love that guru more than you love yourself. Otherwise it won't work. Interesting, isn't it? I find, yeah, okay. So, any questions before we do the practice?
My last one that my mum bought me, and it doesn't have the knots. Should I?
Yeah, that's not my yogic knot. Yeah, you need one with knots. I mean, you're not going to get struck by lightning, but it's just.
Do you want to take any chances, Mum?
Okay. Okay, we'll do the practice. And so just one last thing I'd say, some confusion about this. When you rest your mind on the final point of concentration, which I don't like calling it either, heart or third eye, is it a point? What is it actually that you're resting your awareness in?
Like a feeling, yeah.
Sorry?
Like a feeling.
Feeling, yeah. It's not a point. It might start off as a sort of like having to concentrate the awareness more in a place. It feels like putting it in a place. But I like the way they describe it in the Upanishads. They say it's a cave. Mm-hmm. They specifically talk about the cave in the heart, but it's also the same in the third eye. So when you eventually rest your awareness in that place, what you do is it's like it's in the beginning, it's like you're going inwards. You're walking into this cave. And in the cave is a small altar. And on the altar is a small bright light. And that can really be helpful for centering your mind in the chakra. And then after a period of time, you might find that that feeling becomes more expansive. And like the cave seems to get bigger. It seems to open up and fill with light. And that is expansion of your awareness or consciousness. But avoid the thing of really trying to concentrate on a point, because it will just make you stress. Okay? Should we do the practice? Stretch your legs if you need to. Have a little sip of chai. Oh, I'm the only one with chai. Okay, have your mala at the ready. Hold it in your right hand. Cup it in your left. Close your eyes. Come into natural breathing. Breath is quiet. Feel the connection of your sit bones to your support and the lengthening through your inner front spine. Slight lift in the chest and relaxing of the shoulders. Back of the neck lengthens slightly. And the chin comes very slightly back and down. So your head feels weightless. Bring your awareness into your third eye, center of your skull. And relax the Brahmacya. The tension go from your forehead and your temples. And drop the upper palate, Talamula. And as you do so, allow the muscles of the eyes to relax and the eyeballs to recede in the skull. Relax Lalata, soft palate. Tongue releases, jawline and hinge of the jaw release. Drop down, throat pit. Release any tension in the throat. Straight back from the throat pit, Kantakupa, back throat. Release. Drop straight down to the center of the chest, just in front of your spine. Hridaya. And release. Take a breath there. Exhale, drop down to Nabi, navel center. Next exhale, drop down to Mula, perineum. Big breath into in the perineum. Your awareness there. You can even turn your gaze down and look through the body into the perineum with a soft gaze, just to find the center for the prana. And then as you inhale, just let the prana flow up with your breath through your spine. Turn it into the center of your head. A little pause. Exhale down. Turn it into the center of the pelvic floor. Little pause. Inhale. Little pause. Exhale down. Just feel the movement in the spine. The breath moves in, and as the breath moves out. Roll a bead when the breath comes up. And roll a bead when the breath goes down. The main thing in the beginning is to be conscious of the breath turning at the top and the bottom, which is a very tiny pause. And if you're comfortable with it, try to actually trace the curvature of your spine as the breath comes out. And turn it into the head and then exhale as it goes down. And you can even feel a little bit of tone at the top in the third eye, and a little bit of tone in the bottom, in the perineum. Begin to add the mantra so as the breath comes up. Hum as the breath goes down. On the inhale it's so. On the exhale it's hum. You're aware that the marma points in your head and throat are still soft and relaxed. And the prana isn't drawn away from the Sushumna Nadi, but it remains in the spine. Try to make your breath a little more subtle, a little thinner. A little quieter. So it becomes more of a sensation of breathing rather than a physical act of breathing. You become more aware of energy, prana, and less aware of breath. And then the next time the breath comes up, you can rest in the heart or the third eye. And switch the mantra to Om or your personal mantra. Keep the awareness of the prana. And the awareness in the center of the chest or the center of the skull. You want to try and feel a sense of space, like a cave, an opening in the skull or in the heart. So you feel comfortable in that space. And the prana can manifest in that space if it happens as a soft white light, like a full moon. Try to let the mantra continue now, but don't repeat the mantra. Let the mantra repeat itself. So it becomes a vibration of your body and mind. And the vibration of your soul. It's okay if you completely disappear. And there's only the mantra. And then let go of the mantra. Rest in absolute thought-free silence. With expansive awareness. of the Supreme Reality. Release your mind. And if you're in the third eye, on an exhale, drop the prana down through the hitanadi into your heart. If you're in the heart, just release the intensity of your awareness there. Begin to breathe a little more freely and deeply. Leave the mala in your cupped hands and bring the cupped hands over the heart. Inhale deeply for all. Back of your chant sheet, if you're not familiar, Om Triambakam. Om Triambakam Yajamane Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Om Kamivandana Prityo Shivamrita Om Triambakam Yajamane Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Om Kamivandana Mrityo Shivamrita Om Triambakam Yajamane Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Om Kamivandana Mrityo Shivamrita Om Sabisham Swasti Bhavatu Sabisham Shanti Bhavatu Sabisham Purnam Bhavatu Sabisham Mangalam Bhavatu Sabe Bhavantu Sukhina Sabe Santu Niramya Sabe Badrani Pashantu Makashit Dukhabhag Bhaved Asato Ma Sakamaya Tamaso Ma Soiti Gamaya Prijoma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Mudashyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamidam Ashishate Om Shanti 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 Om Guru Shivananda Maharaj ki jai. Remind yourself the intention you made for your practice. Namaste. Okay. How much time is this supposed to finish?
But possibly early. I think you said 7:30.
Oh, did it? Right, yeah. Okay. We're okay for a minute. Okay. Questions? Anybody have any questions or observations about meditation?
You know when we were doing the moving the mala,
Yeah.
and then when we like stopped with the mantra, Will we stop with the moving the beads as well?
Oh, you keep going.
Keep going, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't make that
Yeah.
clear, yeah. Yeah, you keep going with the mala until you need to, so that it does raise a question, like, you don't necessarily have to keep going with the mala all the way to the end of the meditation. You definitely want to be using the mala in Soham, and I think it's quite nice to continue to feed, but sometimes it gets to a point when the meditation gets deeper, where there's just this intense desire for complete stillness.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I wanted to sort of.
Yeah, and it's okay at that point just to bring the mala down and sit. I often just do one mala, and then I'll do the rest of my meditation without mala. So the mala is a device, it's a technique. I mean, some people use a mala all the time and all their meditation for the whole of their lives, but it can be used in different ways. There's no hard and fast rule. Also, when you're doing a longer meditation, you can get really tired. Does anybody feel that? Like you're starting to get tense and tired holding the mala? That's when you need a mala back. So yeah, so that's okay. Anything else?
I struggled with Soham and I dropped straight into Dharma Talk, and I just had the visual in my head. I could see Ma Durga in my head, and that was my visual. And then I couldn't, when you said drop it, I didn't want to.
You mean at the end when I said drop
Yeah.
it? Yeah, well, you should just keep meditating. If you feel like that, if you're in the zone with your deity or your visualization, but in the Soham, the visualization is not the deity. In the Soham, the visualization is the Shakti, it's the prana. So it's a moving energy. So you only do the visualization when you put the mind into stillness in the chakra.
I actually struggled with that. I couldn't do the. I was
Yeah,
like, I'm not going. It's not going up and down my back. It's going up and down.
It takes
my front.
practice.
Yeah.
It takes practice. Yeah, it does take practice. Anybody else struggle with it? With that? The visualization of the prana moving up and down?
Always
Yeah.
struggled with that.
I just wonder if I can ask you, if this Marma pose, are they going through the spine, or actually, when you say, for example, the navel level, should it go through the spine, but on the navel level, or actually in the front?
You mean when we were doing the marmas or when we were doing the Soham?
When we're doing the Soham, when the prana should move through the spine? Or
Yeah.
the Marma pose?
Yeah. So when you're doing the Soham meditation, it's in the spinal channel. So it's the Sushumna Nadi is right. It's a psychic channel right in the center of the spine itself. So that's where you visit. So you can you try and, you don't have to, but if you can trace the actual curvature of your spine with the mantra, it eventually works better.
Just for example, on the navel level, but in the spine, actually. If you know.
No, we start from the perineum.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and then you come up through the spine. The navel, when you're doing the Soham, forget the navel, forget the other chakras. That's a later thing. Later on, there's a way you do it where you use all the different chakras and do visualization, but that's much farther down the road. This is just a foundation technique to kind of like teach you to concentrate the prana in the right place in the body. And it's enough. I mean, there's lots of ways of doing this technique. We're starting with Soham. And then what can happen is, like, if you just do it for long enough, and you do have to persevere with it. It's like a practice. It's not natural for everyone, but it is one of the most fundamental and one of the oldest recorded meditation practices in yoga. And what will happen after a while is you're going Soham, Soham, and eventually the gaps at the ends disappear. And it becomes like Soham becomes a cycle. Soham, so, and then it will sometimes switch to Ham So. Like hum, so, and then I'll go Soham. It's because the prana is kind of it's not something that you're instigating the prana, but you're not in control, you're not in total control of the prana. It's kind of like a little animal. It's like has a bit of its own mind as well. And that's what happens when you put it in the chakra as well. Sometimes the prana, the concentration that you have of that awareness will feel different on different times. So what was your, so yeah, so it's in the spine. What was your question? Did you say, yeah, you said you found it difficult to do the Soham.
Me?
Yeah, you, did you?
Yeah, yes, but just because I can feel a lot of tension in my body, there wasn't really a question about it, but just
Oh, okay.
I feel a lot of tension in my back, so
Yeah,
it's difficult to relax into the meditation.
try sitting up higher
Okay,
and do more asana.
yeah, I should do more
Asana is preparation for meditation.
Yeah,
Particularly if you've got it in your upper back, do lots of hasta vinyasas, like arm movements and things. That's what helps keep the upper back free, shoulders free. And if you get, if you get discomfort, feel discomfort in meditation, move. You know, you don't have to sit like the Buddha. I mean, they're just statues. He probably moved around a lot. I mean, you don't have to sit like the Buddha. You don't have to be perfectly still in meditation. If you're feeling discomfort in meditation, the best thing you can do is move and change your position, not sit there and feel discomfort, because the discomfort will stop the meditation. It's the hardest thing to do, to sit for a long period of time. Anything else? Yeah, you can have as many questions.
You mentioned about personal mantras. Like, is that something that you, like, say if you, like, because when we would say if we're doing these ones, if there's one that you feel a connection to, like, can you just choose one, or is it like something that, because I know that sometimes people get them from a guru or something, and you kind of,
Yeah.
I just wondered your opinion on that.
Yeah, so, wow, how long have we got? Yeah, we're gonna, yeah, so if you feel a natural, does this question resonate with anyone else?
Yeah.
So how do you choose a mantra, or how do you get given a mantra? It's a huge topic, and there's lots of traditional stuff about it. And there's lots of stuff which is more practical about it. So I won't go into any great detail, apart from to say that if you have a particular, one of the reasons why at the beginning of the class we're chanting deity mantras is exactly for this reason. I want you to be exposed to the vibration of these different mantras. And by being exposed to those vibrations, you might feel there's a vibration which resonates with you. You either like the vibration of the mantra, or you might fall in love with the picture of the deity, or you might be really drawn to the story of the deity. These are the three ways that you come into contact with a mantra, usually in the modern Western world, and often in modern India. Not many people these days have the kind of guru who can give them a mantra. It's rare, but it happens, and you might find that person at some point. But if you want to get on with meditation and use a mantra for your meditation, keep it, don't overanalyze it. If you feel a connection to a deity in any of those ways I've mentioned, just take that deity form, that mantra, whatever it may be, and use it in your meditation. You'll soon know whether it's right for you. Can I answer your question? Yes, Tilla.
So if you have a personal mantra, and because I was given one by years ago, but then you asked about my life at that time, so could it change like 10 years later? I like it. I like it very much. I just wondered.
Yeah. I mean, again, very good question. Yes and no. So you can, if you've had a mantra, it depends also, like, you know, if someone gives you something, a sacred object, and you stick it in the back of a drawer and you ignore it for 10 years, that object isn't as sacred anymore, because it needs your prana. It's like a mala. If you just chuck a mala on the floor in the corner and forget it, all the prana goes. You use it for your meditation, it builds prana. It makes your meditation easier. If you've got a mantra and you've used it a lot and you've really resonated with it, that mantra is always going to be your root mantra. And if you haven't done that, then it's easier to switch mantras. Because what you'll find is if you just start to switch around with mantras, your root mantra will always dominate. And when you get halfway through your meditation, you'll find that you've dropped back into your root mantra, because it's like embedded in your psyche and in your pranic body. If you haven't got to that stage with your mantra yet, you can change mantras, but you need talk to me. You know, I would advise you. You don't just want to switch mantras. Yeah. So I mean, it's a very big question. It's a very good question because lots of people want to do it. I'll tell you a quick story. One of my teachers is Swami, and he's a Shivite. Like in Shivananda, nearly all the Swamis are Shivites. They worship Shiva, Lord Shiva. And he had been he'd worshipped Lord Shiva all his life. He'd been a Swami for 20 years. And then he started to fall in love with Hanuman, the monkey god. He started to fall in love with, and he just was desperate to meditate with Hanuman. And he felt really, really terrible. He felt really guilty. And he felt like he was betraying not only his God, but also his tradition. So he went to the head Swami at the time and told him what was happening. Like, he really worked himself up into a lather about it. He was really upset, and it was destroying his meditation. And he went to his head Swami and told him about it and said, "What do you think?" expecting to sort of be in trouble. And the head Swami said, "It's okay, they're brothers." And there's the answer, really. They're all different embodiments of the one. They're different mantras and different energies and different forms, but they're all one. So you can change, but what I would say is I use different mantras, but for different reasons, for different energies, at different times. But I have a root mantra, and I can guarantee whatever mantra I'm using, when I've sat there for 15 minutes, I'll be back on that mantra. Because what it is, all those mantras are subsumed. You know, all those mantras, all the mantras and all the day, they're embodied in my one mantra. You know what I mean? It isn't like that's one mantra and the other mantra's over there and the other day. They're all that when you have one which is completely embedded in your mind body, it embraces all the other deities and forms, not in just the yogic tradition, but in all traditions. Every mantra, including the Soham, which is the sound, the mantra which everything in the created universe is breathing in and breathing out all the time. So how can you go wrong? Yeah.
What's the energy of Shiva and Shiva?
The Shiva mantra is benevolence. Shiva mantra, that's the foremost thing of Shiva, benevolence. Shiva is also the creator because he's the destroyer. What is he the destroyer of? He's the destroyer of doubt, the lower nature, the troublesome, unwanted thoughts, the conflict, the anxiety, the suffering, and the creator of bliss. Namaste. Okay, so we are going to go, we're going to have prasad, and then we're going to go and just have our chai chat today. I just want to turn to the altar and do a very short Arati before we have the prasad, and we'll just do the final prayer of the Arati. Twameva Mata. Can you turn the lights down, please? Or off, actually, it'd be fine. Maybe just leave one on. Yeah, that's fine. Great, thank you. Oh. 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 Sakalam Parasve Narayati Sama Dayami Savedanam Prajaya Madam Saranam Prajaya Aham Swasava Pakatiyo Yakchar Shami Vasucha. Heart of the Lord is mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, thou art subsequent and that. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute, thou art being, dweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, with a vision, balance, mind, faith, devotion, wisdom. Give us inner spiritual strength, give us inner strength to resist temptation, control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, jealousy, and prejudice. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Om Guru Sakru Bhagavan Ki Jai. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you, Maureen. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace. Namaste. Thank you. If you'd like to state the chai, we'll have a reading and then a chat. Marion told me to say you don't have to have chai, you can just have a normal cup of tea or something else if you want. Everyone okay?